this hand on here. So, hey everyone, happy Community Manager Appreciation Day 2016. We are on our 23 of 24. We've been celebrating Community Management Appreciation Day now for 7 years, not the whole time, just every fourth Monday in January. Thanks to Jeremiah Owing, who 7 years ago tweeted out, hey, we should do this. We should have a day where we celebrate community managers and all the great things that they do and recognize them in our industry. And that's what we've been doing. For the last 4 years, we've participated by having this hangout and bringing in people from all over the world to talk about community management in different flavors, as well as how it relates to their parts of the world. For the last 3 years, we've had a awards program where awesome sponsors come in and help us ship physical awards and a lot of swag to winners that a panel chooses from nominations of other community managers from all around. And in fact, this year we had 300 nominations. That's a record for us, and we're really excited next year to see that program grow even bigger. So just to introduce myself real quick, let everybody else here introduce themselves, and then we'll get going. My name is Brew, the Director of Awesome with BTC Revolutions, and co-producer at My Community Manager.
Hey everybody, I'm Sherry Rohde. I'm the Community Manager at Magento, and I co-produce Steamager Hangout at my Steamager.
Hi guys, I'm Kristen Cardos, and I work in community with Convince and Convert and B3 Broad Suite.
Hey guys, I'm Brock. I'm the founder of Amplify Your Biz. I'm the community manager for Meshfire, and I'm also a community manager for BTC Revolutions, and I help out with my community manager hangout.
Hey guys, I'm Dom. I am a community manager and project manager for BTC Revolutions. Co-host on Fridays for my community manager hangout with Sherry and Brew. And before I get literally pushed out of here to not be on this panel, I wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our sponsors. You've heard me say it 20 some odd times so far today, but it doesn't take it down at all. They are absolutely amazing. So big ups to them. I'm actually going to try to do the no. We'll just do it off the list.
Just do it off the list.
Just to be safe.
Yeah.
Salesforce, Community Cloud, Higher Logic, Online Community Results, Sprout Social, Vanilla Forums, Zoomf, communitymanagement.org, socialmedia.org, Amplify Yourself, Igloo Intranet, and Meshfire. Thank you very much to all of you sponsors that really hooked us up with some awesome swag to wear all day, but then really made these awards something special that people are going to remember. So, Brew, what's going on now, buddy?
Yeah, so like I said before, this is our 23 of 24. So technically this is our last planned panel. The last panel is just really a recap of the day. And the topic of this is staying ahead of the game, building a community of video games. And so take it away, Amber and Brock.
Awesome, thank you. So yes, bye. Thank you for joining us, guys. I am super stoked about this. I kind of give a little rundown, but I'll kind of give a background about myself. I've been awake for about like 30 hours now, so sorry. So I'm Brock DC everywhere on Twitter, internet, wherever. I am the community manager of Meshfire. I've been doing community management and writing and all that for years, and I get to work with my best friend, Amber Osborne, who is going to be co-hosting this panel with me today, and we are going to be talking about community management in the gaming industry because, I mean, who doesn't play video games and who doesn't love gaming, right? And especially with eSports and just gaming, I especially personally have kind of had my passion for video games reignited because of how awesome the social space have allowed community managers to really own it and really make, bring out the passion in the players. But of course, that comes with its own challenges. So today we have some awesome panelists who are veteran community managers in the gaming industry that are going to be talking about them. We'll be asking them some questions. They're going to be answering them. It's how it works, apparently. So I am going to go ahead and let Amber introduce herself. After Amber, we'll go in order of Tara, Stein, and James, and then we'll go into our first question. So guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Awesome. Thank you, Barack. I'm Amber Osborne. I am the CMO of Meshfire. We have a social media management platform that has AI behind it. And we are so thankful to be involved with CMAD because without community managers, really, we couldn't have a product. And in the last year or so, we've just found that especially video game community managers are so valuable to not only the social sphere, but just to helping building our product as well. They have some very unique challenges that I've never seen before with other companies and brands and such. So I'm really excited to have especially this panel because we have some just really just killer people that have been kind of pinnacles. I would say some of them are pioneers of what they're doing in their community manager space. So I'm going to let them tell a little bit more about themselves. So Josh, go ahead.
What's up, everybody? Again, Josh Stein. Thanks again, obviously, for having me here on this panel. Super humbling and awesome. I am a community manager here, Microsoft Studios team, and I help manage our Studios platform with a bunch of other community managers. We work all on a team, specifically responsible for Quantum Break, myself, and then help with, of course, Twitter, Twitch, blogs, Facebook, and whatnots.
Very cool. Tara?
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going? So for me, I'm actually freelance at the moment, so I started my own consulting business just a few months ago, just went off into my own space. Prior to that, I used to work over at Xbox on 1 vs. 100. I don't know how many of you guys played that, but that was kind of a huge highlight of my career, kind of the blend of TV and community and just all these really fun things around games and live streaming at that point in time. After that, I worked at PopCap Games, got into more of the casual mobile space, had a couple of really great years there, and then I actually moved down here to Wellington, New Zealand to work at a mobile game studio called Pickpock down here in Wellington. They do a lot of games with Adult Swim. You've probably played Robot Unicorn Attack. Kind of built out their community department, and it's been a great time. Like, I love being a community manager, and again, thank you guys so much for inviting me to be part of this.
Glad to have you. Lance, go ahead.
Hey guys, so I'm Lance James. I'm the community director and producer for Versus Evil. We're an indie publisher, so we work with lots of indie games. Mostly like the Banner Saga right now is one of our bigger games. But I've been working with games for quite a while. I started off playing eSports for Age of Empires probably 10 years ago at this point, so I've been around and watching the video game kind of community and all that stuff grow. So yeah, eager to talk to you guys.
We are super stoked to have all of you guys. I'm very excited. So I'm going to get started with the question that we're all dying to know, which is, how did you get doing community management in the gaming industry, aka the coolest job you could have? So tell us a little bit about your history and how you guys started with community management, gaming. Go ahead and somebody jump on in.
I'll jump in. Kick it off here. So I started on support, actually. I started just slinging tweets for @Xbox support and helping out on the support side. From there, I was fortunate enough to start working at playdates, set those up for the team, and I started meeting people here at Xbox, which was really awesome because it's a very small, tight little campus where all the Xbox stuff is basically housed. And through that, found my way onto the Xbox Ambassadors team, which is a really awesome program. Basically, it's community-driven support and structure to help the console and other initiatives. So I became their community manager, helped rally them, and it was super awesome because they were just passionate about just the platform in general. They weren't really niched into any game. They kind of just spread all over the place, so I got all sorts of flavors. And I worked on that and the Xbox MVP program for over a year. and then recently just moved over to the studios team and started working on Quantum Break. So that happened all in the last 3 years, so might be the greenest one, but this has been super awesome. It's a giant, awesome roller coaster, pretty much. You just hold on to, and it's just fantastic. So.
Very cool. Lance, how about you?
Yeah, so I started off kind of transitioning to community management from eSports. I got to the point where I wasn't quite up to snuff, I guess, for the rest of people. So kind of my transition to stay in gaming was to go to community management type things. So I did that kind of like on a volunteer basis for about 8 years, give or take. Then I got my first full-time community management job with Tryon World with Defiance and Rift, End of Nations, and Warface. I did that for 3 years, I think, give or take, and now I've been at Versus Evil for 3 years, I think, something like that. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. Take it away, Tara.
So I've had kind of an interesting path. I actually started out in QA on the hired gun team. And my dream was like I really wanted to be a producer. I really wanted to be an art producer in particular. And at one point I ended up applying for a project management role, joined that team full-time over at Xbox. Loved the team. Fantastic bloody group of people. But right as Halo 2 Vista finished, they almost broke up the team. Until they found this quirky, weird little project to attach to, which at the time was called Server-Backed Games, yeah, SBG, which turned into 1 versus 100. And at the time I was doing a lot of producer role stuff on there, tools producer, prizing, all that fun stuff. And my manager at the time basically talked to the lead on that team and said, hey, with this type of game, I think it's really important for us to do something with social media. For those of you who haven't played 1 versus 100, it functioned more like a TV show. You showed up at 7 p.m. on a Friday night to play with tens of thousands of other players. So for us, it was really, really important to not just get people in there, but coming back regularly. And the funny thing about my transition to community manager is I absolutely did not want to be a community manager at all, full stop. I think when they mentioned it, I actually said, God, people? You're going to make me deal with people? I don't want to do this. All right, fine. I do have some bandwidth. I'll take care of it. It is really important. And I think it was after the first live show, like just the beta up in Canada, where I saw that real-time interaction and I saw the feedback and I saw the connection and the impact that it was making, not just with the people who were playing it, but with the team as well, getting to be a part of that and share that experience. I was hooked. Like, I just absolutely fell in love with it, and I kept chasing that dream to the extent that I actually got put on Project Spark at one point as an art producer, like, exactly what 20-year-old me would have killed somebody for. And I couldn't do it. I loved the team, I loved the project, I loved what they were doing, but I had to get back to community. And this opportunity came up at PopCap, and PopCap. So I hopped over there and I took it full time. Like that's what I've pursued as my career this whole time, and I've loved it. I've loved dealing with different people, different games, different titles, and every single community is so different, and those interactions you have are so special that, how can you not love that?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting, Tara, especially because, you have been through so many different game titles and different communities, and that brings up a lot of unique challenges, because you're not just representing one brand that you kind of know what the flavor of the community is like. So what would you guys say some of the most unique challenges that you guys have probably as a gaming community manager?
I've got a few probably actually. So one that I find, or one that I found, regardless if it's AAA or indie gaming, is trying to tell people that, if there's always going to be bugs or problems or whatever the problem is, game development isn't always as easy as what people think it is. Yeah, we might be able to see a bug or find a problem or whatever, but be able to get that fix out to you isn't a simple button click. Oftentimes, it's not even a simple, email or what have you. Oftentimes, some of the smallest things can take a week or longer if you're working with consoles just to get a simple patch out or a simple update out. It's it's one of those things of people in the community think that making games is easy and fun and simple. In reality, it's our developers' jobs. It's what they do for a living. It's their career. It's their livelihood. It's their future on the line in a lot of cases, and they want to fix things just as much as everybody else. But it's just trying to, as often as I can, convey the message that it's not easy. It's not a simple button press. Rarely is it a simple button press. It's just trying to get that two-way open communication going back and forth to let people know we're working on it. It just might not happen right away or whenever it happens. That's easily my number one, probably.
I think one of the things that I've noticed is the nimbleness of it, just for me personally. Each day seems to shift depending on, because you're dealing with games, you're dealing with a form of entertainment. A lot of people pour a lot of passion into that, of course. That's how they consume their free time. That's how they spend their money as well. So a lot of them will definitely, I feel like, will raise that passion, and that's the foot that they'll lead with. So one of the unique things that I've at least found in these last 3 years is making sure leading with the same foot and understanding that where these people come from is a place of passion, because it might be their hobby, it might be everything that is to them when they're outside of their Monday through Friday 9 to 5. So that's one of the unique things that I found, is not leading with some sort of like business or very, very black and white foot, but more of like okay, I'm understanding the same level of passion you're putting into this. Let's start with that, and then the conversation just goes organic from there. Yeah, I'd say that's one of my big ones for sure.
I think to add on top of that is kind of how much those conversations can change based on audience, and that you can have two very, very similar looking audiences from the outside that communicate in vastly different means and have, different passions and different things that, bother them, that they love, that they really embrace, content that works really well with, this group of 40-year-old women living in the Midwest does nothing for this group of 40-year-old women living in the Midwest. And being able to play around with, the different content types, the different tones, and just understanding, like, different things are going to bother different communities, and having to adapt your approach and kind of your own personal biases and your own personal assumptions as well. Like, as you said, like the people who are coming at it from a place of passion, I think there's kind of this mentality where people are like, oh, it's a sweet little old lady playing the game. But if the sweet little old lady can't play the game during 3 o'clock because the server just went down, you're going to get a screed. And just knowing how to handle that conversation, in a lot of ways they see you as a young kid versus other communities where you're ancient. Like, you're just, like, anything I have to do on Tumblr makes me feel old, so...
Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit, and you guys kind of touched on this, which I love because you guys are just making the flow so much easier. As community managers in the gaming industry, especially when you're working with such passionate people, it's important for you guys to build, or actually help build, a culture that's more customer focused, that's more customer centric. So the question I have for you guys next is, how much does your community influence decisions that are made around overall strategy on the business side?
I can jump in on that. Oh, sorry, am I cutting someone off? All right. Yeah, so I always exercise a little bit of caution there. Your community and the people who are the most active on the community tend to be people, like, it tends to be a subset of your actual full audience. So, sometimes you definitely skew things for that audience. They're the most passionate. If there's an easy win from a development side that's just going to make those people sing your praises, do it. But be cautious about making very big, very critical changes if you don't have the data to back it up. Ideally, what you want to do is look at your community data, look at what people are saying, and then compare that back to real analytics. Like how many people are playing? Are we seeing a big drop-off? Or is it just that these 20 players who used to be really active aren't in there anymore? Being able to go back and forth between those two, really solid plan. Of course, that means you have to have those analytics in place, and if you haven't actually planned for that, that can be, you're kind of blind at that point. All you can go off of is what the community is saying.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's definitely a big part of it. And from my point of view, it definitely depends on your game or what you're doing. Obviously, some games are much more community involved than others, specifically if it's an online game or single player or what have you, genre dependent. But overall, community definitely influences the vast majority of things we do. Oftentimes, obviously when we're getting ready to launch a game, it's really important. We want to satisfy their needs as much as possible with information, with details, giving people specifically what they want, whether it's specific tidbits of information, details on where they can get the game, live streams, what have you. And I would say even within the past year, probably we've kind of swayed rather more toward community initiatives than we have press and PR initiatives, just because we have certainly seen the influence of what Twitch can do and what YouTube people or influencers can do. It's one of those things that we feel that a large community that's interested and vocal, if we can keep them interested and vocal throughout our launch and throughout our life cycle for our games, it really just adds to it, because it's that word of mouth. Gamers talk to each other. Obviously, they're in forums, they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're all over the place. They all talk to each other, and keeping them going and keeping them satisfied is one of those things that definitely keeps us going and very busy at the same time, but definitely keeps us going.
I think it's important as well to keep feeding them in a proper way as well, and not just blasting it out. When it comes to the community and the decisions, setting a strategy, of course, is getting the start and setting your placeholders and your checkpoints. Those are the things. But one thing that's always important to me when looking at a community strategy, when looking at a video game specifically, is making sure there are constant beats of what does the community think about this. Making sure there are proper channels set up, so that way when those channels need to be open, basically, and that intake of community feedback needs to be set, they're already preset there in intervals. So that way, when you have your you could say 10 steps to launch, those gates are already all built in. Is kind of the approach I've always liked. So the strategy is there. You have your marketing, you have your PR beats, but you have these constant community checks to make sure, is the community, are they listening to us? Are we listening to them? Because anyone can build something in a bubble and then ship it out of the bubble. But if you can break out of that bubble and say, okay, let's make this more of a doorway. Let's let them in. Let's talk to them. Let's make sure we're listening. Are we identifying like our diehard 1% crowd? Are we identifying the majority of the crowd? Doing your checks and balances on how much weight the information you're getting. But I think having a good channel structure is very important whenever you're getting your influence at your different time intervals.
Yeah, I actually think you just answered my next question. So Josh touched a little bit upon actually a bit of our next question. Josh, you were formerly with the Xbox ambassador team, and you're taking a community that's centered in, say, Xbox, and how do you kind of connect that player community within the gaming platform with the gaming or the community that's already been built on social media? So you've got like a whole community out there and forums and all kinds of social media aspects. How do you kind of connect the two? How do you find the players that are chatting on Xbox and kind of say hi to them on social media?
It's good. Yeah, it's good because also acknowledgement is very important to the community. They want to make sure of like any human being, they want to make sure their voice is being heard. If I talk to you and you don't say anything back, I feel like I'm not heard. Same thing with the community. I've been lucky enough to be part of a couple projects where we've had different intervals of that set up. As you mentioned, the ambassadors program was a fantastic way how that existed. It had its own setup of as far as a site went. We had the feedback site, we had the forums, we also had a persistent chat, which was my favorite thing. So we would actually have a dev hop into a live chat that was scrolling, and they could sit there and get that information on the fly. So we had basically, like I said, setting up different channels for different perspectives. You want something immediate, you want something pulsing. You know, you can hop on social media, you can hop in the persistent chat. Do you want to create a conversation? Do you want to start a forum and go get a back and forth going? Or do you want to get a data dump of feedback? So we've set up all those different channels so that way we can approach each one individually. But bringing them into the process is important. So when you have a player community, you have the gaming platform, you have the social media. Your social media just becomes a tool to welcome them into the front door. And from there, you can bring them in, and you can have conversations with devs. That's the great thing, is everybody's on social media pretty much. So even the devs are on social media, and you'll see them jump into the conversation and start talking to them, which is kind of cool to almost sit back of, is when you push the on button, and then all of a sudden it just starts going by itself. And you're not feeding it, you're not putting anything into it. It just suddenly became organic, and the conversations are happening live. And that's when I feel like that's when the magic happens, and you have that ooh and ah moment. So
from the mobile casual space, and this is kind of more from a development perspective, but if you're working on a team, you should be working with them before the launch of the actual game. One thing that I've seen that's really common is people build all these great channels. They have, an awesome Twitter account, an awesome Facebook page, and then there's absolutely nothing in the game, or it's buried 5 menus deep, to tell people, hey, here's our hashtag, here's where we are, we'd love to hear from you, this is the way you can give us feedback. If you're not building those tools in, you're not, throwing up the big welcome sign that says, like, we'd love to hear from you, here's where you can find us, don't be surprised when you don't get any followers and you don't get any interaction. Especially with the mobile casual crowd, you've got, an attention span window that's fairly limited. If you don't make it really, really easy for them to come find you, chances are they're just not going to. And if you can get somebody involved in the community and chatting with you and having a good time, they're more likely to stick around with your game as well if you need to pitch, the business side back into your team. If you can get someone on a social channel, you have a much higher chance of keeping them around. So if you're not putting those hooks in there, you just lost that opportunity.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both those points. I think they're both very, very important, obviously. For me, it's just about giving our players, or any player, a voice, giving them a reason, giving them a chance to be heard. Obviously, sharing the information as much as possible, like where you can talk to us, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, in-game, Twitch, forums, Steam, whatever. We want to, my goal would always be to make it so that I'm not forcing a player to speak where I want them to speak. I want to empower them to talk to us wherever's comfortable for them. And oftentimes that might be in private or it might be in public. Everybody's different. And one of those things that's great about getting a player on social media, it's a good way for us to be able to, give them kudos, give them praise, give them acknowledgement for helping us, or for giving us feedback, or for sharing their opinions. Oftentimes, nobody's perfect. We might get great ideas from a community member. And oftentimes, through Twitter or a Facebook message or a YouTube comment or whatever, we'll see these random ideas pop up that we wouldn't otherwise see if they weren't connected with us. So yeah, definitely just about giving them a voice and letting them talk to us, and making sure we talk to them however it's comfortable for them.
I love it. Thank you, guys. So speaking of giving to your community and your players and giving them a voice, what are some other ways you give back to your community? Share those with us. Let us know how you do that.
I know recently I've done a couple of this. So one of the programs I've worked on is the Xbox MVPs. And just really quick, they're basically an NDA group of community leaders on the Xbox level. So these people, these ladies and gentlemen, they run their own communities, and they're super awesome, they're super positive, and so we support them and we help them. But which is great is we also give them a voice. So one of the ways we give back to them This is what I love is it's not, oh, here's a T-shirt, oh, here's a lanyard. Instead, it's, hey, why don't you come be a part of this process? So one of the things that, it's a little story, but it's not too well known, but it's out there, is that the Xbox Elite controller was made as part of that process. So as a thank you for all the work they do and leadership they do, we brought them into the process to help build it. And that was really cool to see the reward on their faces just being part of the process. So that's one of the ways that I've always loved seeing that, is not just like, you know, here's a, like I said, here's a lanyard, but it's actually like, hey, you do so great in the community. We would love to bring you in and you help us build something. So now it's a part of you. So that's probably hands down my favorite kind of reward to achieve, is that cohesion kind of. Yeah, that's probably the best one that I've seen.
So I've got a couple of good ones that have happened in my past. One that I thought was very cool was that we had a really awesome community member for the Banner Saga, and he really jumped the gun. He helped all over the place. So we actually got in contact with him, all that good stuff, and we put his likeness into the sequel. So his full character has been rendered into the game using his actual face. He helped do the backstory, all that good stuff. So he's a character in an upcoming game. So I thought that was very cool. Other things in the past, awesome community members, we've flown out to like trade shows like PAX East or PAX South, invite them to our booth, things like that. Then just smaller things, obviously, like giving kudos out via social media or in-game even, say media or server blasts, thanking so-and-so for helping us find whatever, helping us identify a problem or whatever. Sometimes just a simple kudos, just simple thank you, really does go a long way. But yeah, all the bigger stuff is fantastic to do as well, whether that's meeting people in person, sending them swag, well, whatever. We always look for good ways to reward our community members, so I'm sure we'll see more good stuff in the future, but it's fun way to do, fun things to do.
You guys seem to have much bigger budgets than I've had in the past for that sort of thing. Which, just to speak on that a little bit, is like sometimes it's the small things that really get to people. With 1 versus 100, we asked people before the second season, like, what do you guys want to see? And we expected like this type of trivia or this new feature at whatever. What it turned out that people really, really, really wanted, that we would have never thought, was amps. They were like little dances that you could do with your avatar in the lobby. They were just a time killer. And when we launched, I think there were like 7 or 8. But it was just hundreds of comments of like, we want more amps, we must have more amps. So, we budgeted it out, and it's like, well, let's put an animator on it and a programmer on it for like a week. And they came up with like a whole leveling system for the dances, so you could not just like get the cool dance, but it got cooler as you leveled it up. And like that was just like one little thing, but it created that sense, kind of what Josh was talking about around ownership. It's something that they had input in. It's theirs. We also had people do a little dance competition, and the guy who won had the coolest dance. He posted it up on YouTube. He did the monkey arms. And we actually like animated him into, like everybody got to do his dance in the next round. But like on the smaller side of things, when I was at Pickpocket, because sending anything from New Zealand is just prohibitively expensive. Like even just sending people T-shirts is ridiculous from here. It's $20 postage for a $10 T-shirt. So we came up with a postcard program where it's just a cool postcard from Pickpocket, and if somebody asks us on Twitter for one, we'd send them one. And we would just have somebody on the team send them a little personalized note, all handwritten, generally with New Zealand facts. I think it was Ash who came up with that. It was like, did you know that a kiwi's nostrils are at the end of its beak? I was like, I did not know that. But it's such a tiny little thing. It cost us almost no money. The people who received them were just ecstatic. Like, posting photos of it out on Facebook, out on Twitter. Just really, really happy that we took the time to be a real person. And I think that's a lot of it, is when you can connect with someone as a real person and not the brand, you've got this great interaction. And they're like, it's just so mutually beneficial, because when you see that post and you see the love, you're just like, this is why I put up with the punching to the face all day.
So it's really interesting because it is just the little things sometimes that matter. Sometimes when you have the smaller budgets, you kind of just need to just do with what you have. We just added emojis into Meshfire, and people lost their freaking minds. But they were like, thank you for listening to us. So I mean, sometimes it is just the little things that matter like that. And I mean, you just mentioned like, sometimes the life of a gaming community manager, you take punches to the face all day. I'm sure all of you guys have stories about a time when maybe you had somebody who was I would say like a bad advocate. They're an advocate, they're a fan, but maybe it was a problem. So I mean, I would love to know a little bit more about maybe like a story that you have about when you had a problem and you just nailed handling it.
I'll pop in here. I've got a somewhat recent story. This happened with Defiance. It was a MMO open world shooter type thing. But basically, we had this player. He was rather vocal, I guess was a good way to say it. He was very angry about some things in the game. He was very vocal about his opinions. He was like extremely negative about the game, and he was negative about the majority of it. It so happened that he turned out to be local to our dev studio in San Diego. So we finally got in touch with him, I think we called him on the phone actually, after sending a few emails, and actually invited him to the studio and showed him why things are the way they are, and sat him right next to our art director in his little office and had him talk to him. Then we walked over to our design guys and had them talk to them. And we walked over to engineering, told them why we couldn't make one of our rifles do a certain animation. And it was, I didn't do a whole lot. I just set it up. So I got to see him interact with our entire dev team. But to see the end result was that the guy totally flipped his script, and we did show him some of the stuff we were working on and what was coming, so that did solve some of his problems. But adding that personal touch to it, showing him why things are the way they were, and having all of our developers take a little bit of their time to talk to him, really flipped him from being a total negative asshole into definitely one of our. He stayed with the game up way past launch. He total advocate for the game afterwards, and he was very open, very honest, and very grateful. It was total flip of his attitude.
Recently, a little bit on a bigger scale, so the ambassador program relaunched. It had existed for many years, gone through many iterations, and so I was part of its relaunch, and that happened literally last fall, in the end months of the year, and there was a lot of drastic changes, and there was a very high tier of echelon of people who were part of the ambassador program who were, we could tell by pre-polls would not be so excited about all the changes, and then of course we had other people who were like, okay, we'll roll with these punches, we'll adapt. So one thing we did is we decided to do a small closed beta a couple weeks before launch. It wasn't necessary quite so. We were ready to go, but we ended up doing a small little beta first, and we made sure to particularly invite those people. And what we did is we basically had, I think, 4 devs on hand in the chat talking to them, so that way they could address their issues immediately. And we literally built on our board the next iteration of bugs and features that they wanted fixed, in a sense to where we could tune them in the new system. So we basically kind of preemptively knew that was coming, and so what we did is brought them in so we could bring them a part of the story, and it ended up everyone was happy with the end product, because they got to feel like they were part of building the product as well, which was great. So it gave them a sense of ownership and pride as well. So that way, when this went out the front door, it's not going to be 110% of everything you want it to be, but you help build maybe 2% of that or 10% of that. So you have a personal investment into it, and that's how we helped address that, and it turned out to be really well in the end. So.
I've been fairly fortunate, or at least maybe I just have a really bad short-term memory, in that I don't remember a lot of horror stories. I've had negative folks, but they're generally pretty easy to deal with, as long as you just remember that it's not really about you. If they're feeling something, they're having a bad experience, don't take it personally. and just hug them, and the really obnoxious ones, just hug them to death with information and kindness, and it's hard for them to find a flaw in that. In terms of like a specific instance, rather than going kind of like a specific person, etc., one of my favorite examples of just totally didn't see that coming, because I'm usually pretty proactive as a community manager. I tend to have a lot of risk management plans in place and responses for things that'll come up, or that we know are going to come up. The one that caught me completely by surprise was on Zuma Blitz. We decided for Christmas, the month of December, not the month of December, but like the week around Christmas, because the board changed. Like the artwork for the board changed every week. We thought it'd be really cool to do a crossover with one of our other PopCap titles, thinking like, yay, PopCap people, they'll get it, etc. Bad assumption. So we put a little PVZ zombie getting run over by a sled. And it wasn't gory, we thought it was funny. The comments almost immediately started pouring in because people thought we were making a really sick joke about Jesus. None of us saw that coming. We couldn't change the board out. The only thing we could really do was be super, super transparent in communications and, lead with an apology. Like, hey guys, I'm so sorry. We totally did not mean to offend you. This is from one of our other games. Here's, the link to our other game. And thankfully, we had a really good community at that point in time. So a lot of folks came in and they're like, it's from one of their other games. They're not trying to be mean, but, nobody reads the other comments. It's just rah, rah, rah. So, we just had to be really, really transparent about it. Make a brand new post like, hey guys, sorry about that. And in the future, we actually started allowing them for specific holidays, mostly Valentine's Day, to choose between one of 3 boards that they would want, involve them in the process. I got really excited about like getting the heart board with a box of chocolates behind it because they picked that one. But it was just one of those examples of like, as prepared as you are and as many like macros as you write, you're gonna get caught off guard. Just don't panic, apologize, find a solution. It'll be okay. Like, you got it.
Yeah, that's a great tip because like no matter how much we prepare, like you never know what the person is how they're gonna react to anything. Like you're like, what? Where did that even come from? Okay, and the first thing to do is not to get defensive, like you said. So that's awesome. Now, one of my favorite things to do as a community manager is when I get I'm a community manager from Meshfire. We have a lot of great fire starters, and I love hearing like totally unprompted, oh, this happened, like this great thing happened because I was using Meshfire and I totally didn't expect it, but I found out there was a trending hashtag and we jumped on it and it was a great process. So those little things, like no matter what industry you're in, is awesome as a community manager. So I would love it if you guys shared your favorite story about a community member or moment that was just totally unprompted, made your day, like made you be, oh yeah, this is why I come in to do every day. Like, this is why I come in every day to do my job because of moments like this. So I would love those stories from you guys.
I mentioned it briefly earlier, but it's still like my crowning moment in the last 3 years that I've done community management and moved into it. It's the Elite Controller. So as I mentioned before, that was one of the most coolest things to ever see. Talk about the MVP community, talk about these trusted community leaders in Xbox that are so great. They do so much. And to see the hardware team and the hardware project managers be like, holy cow, how can we get a piece of these ladies and gentlemen? Like, how can we get them in part of this process? And then out of that was born, like, well, let's bring them into this process. Let's get them to help us build this. And so now, months and months later, holding it in my hand and knowing, like, a part of this was made, created, and changes on here literally because of their feedback will always be one of my proudest moments, to just physically hold something that they helped make because people wanted to listen to the community. People wanted to bring them in. And to this day, that's still that's my most favorite thing ever because I can literally, it sits on my desk. I keep one on my desk just so I can have that remembrance. So, because I'm all mushy like that. But it's pretty cool. That's one of my favorite moments.
So for me, going back to 1 versus 100, because that game was just Yeah. So when we announced, it's kind of bittersweet, this example, but when we announced that the game was done, that it was canceled, we got just an outpouring of stories from our community members. And, like, the people who played that game were all over the map, like, just different demographics, different interests, different skill levels, etc. And the stories that we got out of them when the game was canceled were amazing and heartbreaking at the same time, because it was things like, my uncle doesn't play video games, he thinks they're stupid, he doesn't understand them, but he really loves history trivia, and I'm not good at it, so every Friday he comes over and plays the game with me and answers all of the history questions. And, I think the best one out of it was one of our players, one of our top players, who'd always been a little more reserved, wrote this big long thing about, like, hey, I'm not generally super open about this, but I have muscle control issues with my hands. I'm not a Twitch gamer, so I'm never going to be the best at Halo. Like, I've always not been a good gamer, by other people's standards. But playing this game and having people, look up to me and say, like, how are you so great at this? Just, it was really, really special to me. And it was like, oh, that's so good. It's just delicious, but sad at the same time. But yeah, those moments when you've connected with somebody beyond just the moment. Momentary joy is great, but when somebody has been impacted by something that you've created, and that's something they're going to carry with them, maybe not for the rest of their life, but for a while, it's fantastic. And one of the things I like to do every once in a while is go look at the 1 versus 100 Facebook page, which has never been shut down for some reason. And there are always new comments. Like, they're less and less frequent, but, like, every month there's a new one, and the game has been gone for, like, 5-6 years now.
Yeah, so I think mine is a kind of combination of both of those. Probably it's the relationships that I've had the pleasure of kind of building up and just making happen. I guess I've had friends I've met 15 years ago in community, and it's we might have talked on the forums, or we might have played games against each other, or what have you. And to this day, we still talk on Twitter and on Facebook and on email every now and then. Then when I was at Tryon Worlds, I had a pleasure of, we had a community team at the time, and we had a Rift community manager who needed help for a special event. And that was 2 of his players who had met in-game were actually getting married in real life. So he was doing a full-on wedding in the game. So that's just a cool moment to share. That's a big thing. That's a big real-life event that people are having. And to share that with the gaming audience, with us, it's those moments and those little relationships that get built up, the fans that carry on, the relationships that go past that hour-long game span that that last. I still talk to people I met 10, 15 years ago. I still talk to people I met 5 years ago, either just through helping them out or being open or being talkative or whatever. Maybe at a trade show. It really just, for me, it's the relationships.
So that's actually that's a really good point, because I mean, I've met most of you guys through Twitter, except for Barack. I just mostly talk to her on Twitter. So in 140 characters, what would you say to somebody who wants to get into the gaming industry, especially as a community manager? It can be a little bit more than 140 characters. I mean, it doesn't really have to be 140 characters. Come on, the X-Files is on.
You're so restrictive. God. Just tweet size, guys. Like, we would love, like, just bring it on.
I'll try to keep it short and simple. Honestly, it's what I follow. It's be genuine, be yourself. Follow everything that you're completely passionate about. I'm a giant Xbox nerd. I live and breathe it. So if you have a passion in a place, live, breathe, eat it, sleep it, within healthy, of course. but just people will see your genuinity. It will literally seep from you, and they'll get excited about it. They'll want to share that with you. So way more than 140 characters, but the idea here is just be genuine, be yourself, and people will see that, and they'll gravitate towards that, and that'll be something that they'll want to help elevate. That's what I would just short that down. It'll work.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely hop onto there. You know, that passion, that definitely goes a long ways. Also, don't be shy. If you think something, you know, don't be shy. You have to be vocal. Like, you're a community manager. You're going to be talking to people. And that goes to your employer as well. If you think something should be a certain way, you know, you're there for a reason. You're the voice of the community to your employer, to your developer. You have to stand up for them when they can't stand up for themselves. So it's one of those things of be passionate, love what you do, and don't be shy.
Off of that, don't be shy. There are tons and tons of community managers on Twitter. We're kind of never not on Twitter, really, most of us. Reach out, say hi. If you're a genuine person, you're an honest person, you're thankful for advice you get, etc., you can just get a wealth of information from people, and you meet great people. Like, I've never actually met Josh in person, but we've been talking for how long? Same thing with Amber, you know. But, you know, if they needed information from me, yeah, I'd probably bend over backwards to give it to them, because they're great people, and they're honest, and I like helping them out. And that, you know, that's kind of human nature. And just kind of off of that, recommendation for a book that I wish that I'd read when I started community management, but avoided because the title's really stupid. How to Win Friends and Influence People. The reason the title's really outdated is because it was written, like, literally in the 1920s. Brilliant book, very, very insightful in terms of how people process things, how communication strategies fail, and just how to interact with people in a way that's genuine, that's honest, and isn't going to cause these conflicts that, you know, cause a lot of the communication issues online. So hopefully that was quick enough.
Good job, guys. Yeah, definitely communication is one of those huge skills that you need as a manager. I don't think any of us could survive without it.
Uh-oh.
And I hope. Wait, I think Barack's trying to, like, chime in here.
I think you cut out for a
Maybe.
bit. All right. Sorry, Amber.
I broke it.
You broke it.
I'm back.
Go ahead and finish your thought.
Hey, I mean, if we are the last panel, we should really just go out with a bang. Plus, like I said, I really want to go watch X-Files right now, so.
Yeah. We break
I love you guys, but bye.
I just want to say thank you to all of you for joining us. This was the last panel of the day. This was hour 23, the Community Manager Appreciation Day. Wouldn't have been able to do without, like, community managers like you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. To Tara, Lance, and Stein, Josh. And if you're a community manager, if you're trying to get in or break into the gaming industry, these guys are amazing. Find them on Twitter. There are also a bunch of other great community managers. Like Tara said, we all love helping each other out. You can also always find me and Amber if you have questions about Meshfire, if you just have questions and you just want to bug us. As long as you send us GIFs, we're good. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brew down in LA, and we're going to take it out. Thank you guys so much.
All right, guys. We'll see you in a few minutes. Please join us for the recap of today and yesterday for some of you for the last 24 hours. So we'll see you soon.